Hello, Anidorks. We'll get started here with Book 8, The Alien, in just a moment, but I wanted to take a second to remind you all that we just started our Patreon. It's Patreon/Anidorks, and if you donate there, we'll shout you out on a minisode and thank you effusively, is the word I want to use, and also make extra content for you. Also, if you leave us a 5-star review, we will similarly read it on a minisode episode, so please leave us one of those. It's so effing helpful. Really excited for all the kind words and support, and excited to make you guys so much more content. But here we go. Let's get started. It's Book 8, The Alien, Part 1, The Alienation.
These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. I don't know. I'm still pretty floored by this book.
So wait, do you want to wait a couple weeks till? Is that what you're saying? All right, guys. The thing about this book, it has a prologue.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, it starts off before everything.
And not only that, it's our first whole book from Ax.
Ax-similation, my boy.
Yeah.
My feelings about him have grown and changed through this book.
He's the loneliest pup of them. Well, maybe Tobias. Tobias might. They have a little competition going for loneliest pup.
Okay, 3-sentence summary. Let's do it. All right.
Oh, man. Oh, no. Did I read the book?
You have 3 whole sentences.
I know.
Use them wisely.
After catching us up, first-time narrator Ax expresses difficulty blending into human society. Period. Despite his friend's best attempts.
Period.
Fuck off. Ax is left realizing just how big the gap between their cultures is when he confronts his species' version of the Prime Directive. In the end, Ax faces many hard choices about what it means to be an Andalite and what it means to be a friend.
A shroom. Very nice. Very nice.
I know I didn't talk at all about anything that happened in the book.
No,
that's okay.
You inspired me. Re-listening to you do yours on the other one, I'm thinking, maybe I'll go more thematic because it's
thematic. Yeah, you want to leave something to the imagination.
You guys are gonna make me do all the heavy lifting on this, like always.
You did do the heavy lifting
Miranda,
last time.
Was that gap the gap or a gap?
It was a gap.
Okay, cool. Just checking.
Okay. 2 sentences.
All right, putting 10 seconds on the clock.
No. You know how I do with timers. Lonely Ax is feeling alienated from his fellow Animorphs and homesick for his own people. Period.
Oh.
No semicolons this time. He is faced with an important decision when he uncovers a way to contact his family, which may also put his friends at terrible risk. Period.
Oh.
I'm hoping I'm remembering.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Nice.
I was like, is this what happened in this book?
All right, everybody settle down. I got to get this right because you two are fucking around with your high-level literary theory. All right, so in this book, love any book report that starts that way. In this book, Andalite spy Ax infiltrates his human alliance to gain valuable tactical information for the Andalites in their conquering of the human species. And this takes the form of going to the movies and eating cigarette butts off the ground, and also witnessing that the plot from book 7 is finally taking hold, and Yeerks are bleeding out of the ears of crazy people, but those people are being disposed of. And this makes Jake very unhappy that Ax knew they'd be killed. And and I'm rubbing my temples because I'm losing
Just
it right
like
now.
we when the Yeerks tried to escape.
Can we cue the music?
Cue the music. No.
Flames?
And flames on the side of my face. So, and as those people are disposed of, Ax goes to the observatory and makes a friend with a betrayer Yeerk who tells him where Visser 3 lives when he's eating in the morning. And he secretly concocts a plot to kill the Visser, but instead lets him live. And then Ax tells everyone about Andalite puberty.
Do you want to just end the episode there?
Yeah.
Like,
I would prefer
You covered
that,
it.
actually. Yeah.
There's not really a discernible difference between Chris doing a 1-sentence summary or a 3-sentence summary. Okay, Captain Nerefear, a character who's going to come up many times in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This book is the most laden with Star Trek metaphor. Go on.
oh my God, don't even. Star Wars 2.
Yeah, but this intro scene where our young Ax-similation,
Can we get Ax's full name?
not yet, not till the first chapter.
Do you know it off the top of your head, though?
Oh,
I do.
No. Oh, Miranda does.
Okay, I think I can get the first 2 parts, but I can't do the third part. Ax-similation,
Yep.
Esgaruth,
Yep.
and then Miranda, I don't know.
Easthiel.
Yes. It's
Easthiel?
Nicely done. And now I will attempt it. Ax-similation. No, I'm just kidding.
So, we are introduced by Ax to the captain of the ship who's speaking in thought speak.
This is apparently moments before the ship crash landed,
Yes.
the dome ship crash landed.
It's just before.
Just before book 1, just before all that shit outside the
This
arcade.
is our prologue
Yeah.
that we were setting up.
But this is also a prologue to the entire series.
Yeah.
Fascinatingly. Yeah, it's self-referential, much like the Swarm references.
So, Ax is introducing us to the captain of the ship, and he's saying he's Elfangor's little brother, and that's the only reason he's allowed up here. Apparently, Arists like him wouldn't normally be allowed up here. He tells us, an Arist is a warrior cadet,
Yeah.
a trainee. An ensign. A young
If you
ensign.
will.
No,
a
just
young ensign Wesley Crusher.
What is
Well,
this a reference to?
I see where you're getting at.
No, this is
But just to
totally
clarify,
Star
an
Trek.
ensign is a real rank. It's
I
not
know.
like a trainee. It's
And
just
so
a
is
low
an
rank.
Arist. But the important thing to remember here is that this whole vibe that they're going to carve out between Nerefear and Ax-similation is very Picard and
Wesley.
and Crusher. It's get off my bridge. Shut up, Wesley. It's very that vibe. Is your mother still single, Wesley? Lots of that sort of thing.
So we have Ax on the bridge. He's moments before everything goes to shit. Ax is, we already knew this, I guess, but he's an important person. Like, he's getting special treatment
Yeah.
right away at the
Yes.
start of this book.
Yeah, he's like, he's the brother of a celebrity.
Yeah.
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 And Elfangor, who, we had this real high opinion of coming into this.
You maybe.
Maybe it's just me, but the fact that his first line in the book, and you're right, Chris, it is Ax-similation, shut up.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's Elfangor talking. I don't think Elfangor is Picard.
No, I know, but
yeah, it is.
you
Shut
are
Up Wesley.
correct.
It's the
It's shut up, Wesley.
Yeah.
But he's also such an older brother, which is a cool angle. I feel like Elfangor has already kind of been mythologized in these books.
Yeah.
Like, he's like a hero, but here he's an older brother more than anything.
A Tom to his Jake.
Yes.
So we learn that the reason Elfangor is telling Ax to shut up is because what he had just thought spoken to Elfangor included a not so flattering nickname for War Prince Nerefear, and Ax says, I guess I had been thought speaking a little loudly.
Yeah.
And
It's like, I guess that can be a thing. Like that.
well, I don't know.
Thought,
Is it considered maybe impolite to use closed thought speak among
okay, why would
comrades?
they know?
Yes.
Why would they know though?
Yeah.
But why would they know that?
Yeah.
No, but like
Maybe Andalites can tell when you're closed thought speaking. They just can't hear what you're saying.
But that has not been established.
But that has never been
Yeah,
said.
that
That's
has
never
not
been
been
said.
established.
And then they have thought spoke around.
Visser. And
Visser.
Ax's thoughts spoken around
Good point.
Visser in the Megamorphs.
I don't know. I don't know what the vibe is. I don't know if maybe it's just implying that as a kid, maybe he's not the best at closed thought speak yet, and he forgets to turn it on. Like,
Yeah, maybe. The nickname that Ax has called
Yeah, we gotta get back to the nickname. Yeah.
Elfangor is Old Hoofentail.
yeah.
No. Wait.
Oh, sorry,
no,
Ax
he
is
called
called
Captain
Nerefear.
Nerefear.
Is
Yeah.
Old Hoofentail, which I think would be a great pub name. That's all I wanted to
Oh,
say. About
yeah.
My favorite thing is like he uses this colloquial term like nickname for Captain Nerefear, and he's like, Elfangor shot me a poisonous look, and then he's like, I think my brother wanted to throw me out of an airlock right then, but he realized it'd be murder.
Yeah.
And that's a bad thing to do.
That's
So I'm pretty lucky that murder's bad.
Murder's bad. And as we will learn, the Andalites follow rules.
Well, they also break rules.
Yeah.
Which is very Star Trek.
So apparently Ax one time went plowing into Old Hoofentail.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand the circumstances in which that was allowed.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, oh, man.
Do
yeah,
we think
like,
war princes are maybe like they work as teachers at the academy?
I mean, it sounds like a Starfleet moment, right? Like it's like a
Yeah.
higher up is coming through, but they're just being kids in the
Yeah,
hallways.
he's
Sort of
Yeah.
vibe.
around, like running around
Yeah,
where he's supposed
yeah.
to walk. I feel like the thing we get about Ax, and this is a very brief moment too, because they're going to start getting attacked in a moment.
Oh, yeah.
We won't get to know Captain Nerefear at all, but right now we're in this scene with Ax, and Elfangor's trying to tell him, like, be cool, Ax, like, I'm letting you be on the bridge, and Captain Nerefear's, like, the person in charge here. And Ax, I feel like,
Totally.
gets characterized, and this is pretty consistent to what we've seen, I think. He's, like, in a very prestigious position as Elfangor's younger brother. Like, he gets special treatment, but he's also kind of a fuck-up, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
he's
Big
a
time.
goofball, or like a dumb jock, I don't know.
I don't think he's a goofball. I think he's trying and he's failing anyway.
Yeah.
He's unproven.
Yeah.
So when Captain Nerefear like turns to look at Ax though, and is like, you just fucked up, youngin', the way it's described is slowly, Nerefear turned his two main eyes towards me. And it's like a very anatomical way to express that his head turned.
Yeah.
Is because it's the two main eyes are built into the skull, whereas the stalk eyes can point in any direction. So a higher up pointing the stalk eyes at Ax, that ain't no thing. That's just like,
That's
quiet,
just
you.
covering your bases, yeah.
But then if you turn your whole head,
Yeah, that's a good
different
point.
level of attention.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a nice little.
You're right, because I viewed it as a slow side eye, but I like it much more as a slow head turn. I think that's really good.
I think, well, and then in the next scene when the klaxons start going off and they start getting attacked, which I believe you were about to get to, I believe that his stalk eyes are what turn to face the monitor.
Yeah.
And he keeps his eyes on Ax.
Yep.
For a moment, which it's like weirdly
They're keeping track
it's weirdly
of the body. There's even a point
Yeah.
where Ax goes through a doorway at a point, and he does it kind of clumsily, and his tail hits the frame. And I was thinking, like, oh, they're doing a pretty good job of keeping track of what kind of body's moving through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Side note, I'm imagining this spaceship as what I imagine. Like, I haven't watched a ton of Star Trek, but like Star Trek, Star Wars, it's all kind of that metallic interior feel, right?
Yeah, yeah.
For people who have hooves and walk on four legs, is that what they would have designed? Like, do you think that anatomically it actually makes sense that, like, if you had hooves versus,
do you
feet?
remember?
Would you want carpet?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, do you remember in book 1 when Jake went in Elfangor's creepy
Yeah,
van?
very smooth.
So they had a description. Yeah, it was very smooth and everything was thought driven. And there was no, like, I believe, like, no discernible interface.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't much there.
yeah.
And then there was a picture and then a cube.
It was very simple.
I would imagine that they just have some sort of texture difference on their flooring. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think it needs to be soft or anything.
It is
It just
true.
needs to be something they're not going to scrabble around on.
Also, something we learned is a lot of the hyper flexible technology, for example, Ramonite, is an Andalite tech.
Yeah, yeah.
They could do things with metal that
that's true.
They have basically a metal that breaks all rules.
Yeah. Last question about that. Do you think that they would have stairwells or ramps? Do you think stairwells would be more difficult?
They have drop shafts. We actually know. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
They have drop shafts and up drop shafts, which
we also think is Andalite technology, although the Andalites feel like the kind of people who would claim someone else's technology as their own.
Interesting. I do think anything that has to do with thought, like if there's anything that you get on and it just works, it's a good indicator that it's at least
Andalite tech.
It's been Andalite for a while.
Yeah.
Like I will say, like, get ready, everyone who's listening, because this book drops so much sci-fi at us, and it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we at?
This is the moment. Actually, the sirens are going off. They're launching bug fighters toward Earth. They're like, there's a mothership in the orbit of Earth, and they're launching bug fighters from it. So Andalites are going to fly out to meet them and fight them.
They also say they're on intercept course. They'll be in firing range in 12 Earth minutes. There is no reason for them to be measuring.
For them to be saying, I like to think that because Ax knows he's writing this for a larger audience.
I missed that entirely, though. That's a good cover-up, Miranda, but like that's a really good point.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's Ax storytelling. Ax is a natural storyteller. I agree with Miranda.
So, sirens going off. Everything's happening. All the warriors, princes and warriors are going to their ships. And Elfangor is like, Ax, get to the dome. And this is the bit that reminds me of Star Wars. Because specifically there's a scene in The Phantom Menace, the best Star Wars movie. Right, so there's a moment there where young Anakin gets left behind in a small ship. Nope, young Anakin. And he's like, but I'm the best flyer. You picked me because I'm a good pod racer. You saw me in those pods. You saw me zooming in those pods.
What is this character you're doing?
Pod racing.
Pod racing, yes.
Okay, awesome.
Anyway, Ax is doing a very similar thing and being like, you have to let me fly, bro. I'm a better flyer than anybody. I can fly as well as anybody. And Ax is like, no, go to the dome. And Elfangor is like, no, go to the dome. Why are you fucking laughing at me, you piece of shit?
I don't know why go to the dome is really funny. I'm sorry. But like, no, go to the dome. Like something about hitting that at the same note. Like it's like, no, go to the dome. It's just a whole step down. It was, and you did it twice in a row because you took it again. So it just like.
But Ax responds, I don't want to be safe. And he says,
I want to be sorry.
But a warrior, even a warrior cadet, has to obey orders. And then I love these two lines. Elfangor was my brother. He was also my prince.
Are you supposed to do that with brothers?
I wouldn't.
This is sort of the first time that it became clear to me that Prince was a sort of, Prince is obviously a rank, but it's not
I thought you were talking about the artist formerly known as. Keep going.
But it's not like a rank in the way that we think of Prince, where it's like, has to be hereditary type of thing and you rule over a kingdom. It's just the word that apparently most closely translates in their hierarchy.
You're so generous to these books and I love it.
So, Elfangor says to Ax, we'll fight alongside each other someday soon, buddy. And then they touch tips, and then, tail tips, they touch tail tips.
Fuck you.
This is apparently what Andalites do. You arch your back and touch tail blades.
Yeah. I think my note for that just says, fuck yeah.
Wait, we have to hit their last words. This is the last time brothers are talking to each other.
It's
true. It's going to be good, right? It's going to be something really memorable and heartfelt.
Who do you want to read with? Read it with Miranda. I really loved you reading Cassie and Tobias together.
Okay. Miranda, you want to take Elfangor?
Sure. You'll have your chance to fight, Ax-similation. Very soon, your fighter will fly side by side with mine. But not in this battle.
Yes, my prince. Hey, Elfangor. Go burn some slugs.
That's the plan, little brother. That is the plan. And then he fucking died.
Go
I would feel devastated if those were my last words to anybody.
That is the plan.
Oh, okay. I know we want to get out of this prologue, but also I could hear the thought speak announcements coming from the bridge.
What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, it means literally nothing.
The word here should in theory have no, he does have ears. No, so it does have meaning. He does have ears and you don't hear words as an Andalite. So what the fuck did you hear, Ax?
Yeah.
So he leaves, he goes up the up drop shaft, and he then goes into sort of the recreational observatory. It's the dome of the ship. I think the idea is that it's like all see-through on the top, like kind of like a weird Jell-O platter. But there's like, we know from book 4, we actually have a vivid description of this from book 4, but it's like recreating the habitat from the planet. It's like grass and water, which they have a word for where that meets. I forget what it is.
He told us that,
They also forgot what that word was.
He was trying to impress Rachel and Cassie and
he was
Marco.
trying to impress Marco.
Marco. Yeah, you're right.
Don't forget which...
I'm sorry. It was Cassie's book, so I got confused, but you're absolutely right. So anyway, while he's up there, there's a couple things that really jumped out to me. He talks about how dead the moon looks.
Yeah.
And later on in the books, he'll talk about the moons around his home planet. I just wanted to lay that out here. He says ruffling of leaves. Which should be rustling, right? Leaves rustle. Last thing I want to hit from this description, he's standing on the blue-green grass. Through the glass, he watched tiny pinpoints of light as the battle was joined in orbit above the blue planet. And there is a scene in Gundam. Gundam is very important to me.
Okay.
There is a scene where two people are having a weird homoerotic moment, or that's how it always is in my imagination because everybody's hot on that show and they're always leaning on each other.
Yeah.
This is why it's homoerotic. In Gundam, they don't talk over radio comms because they can be overheard, but they have a special kind of radio that only goes conducted over metal. So all the enemies hold on to each other in a big group pile. And that's how they communicate because they send comms over that. But they're looking out over the stars and there's all these twinkles. And the twinkles are apparently explosions from the same war that they are in. And they're like, yep, each one of those explosions is a spaceship. 100,000 lives extinguished. Isn't it beautiful? And it's just the most fucked up. It's like Animorphs and Gundam really share a lot in their depravity for that dissonance. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We know what happens here. We do learn that the dome is ejected from the ship for maneuverability of the ship because
First episode of fucking Star Trek Next Generation.
What Ax sees through the dome as he's watching the battle is he realizes there's a shadow in front of the moon and it's getting closer, and that all these bug fighters out in the orbit of Earth have been used to draw the Andalite fighters away, while Visser 3 and his blade ship comes for the dome ship. So the Andalites eject the dome so that they can maneuver better without it.
But they also make the dome a huge fucking target in the process.
Well, they also don't maneuver well enough and get shot down. So Ax watches it get shot down, and the explosion of his home ship seems to be what destabilizes the anti-gravity and orbital thrusters or whatever on the dome. And that's when he plunges into the water, which they do note is boiling when he hits it. So he is appropriately hot for entering the atmosphere. I know we had a lot of conversations about how this entered the atmosphere and then went to the bottom of the ocean.
Well, I will say that the way that it sounds like it entered the atmosphere, it sounds like it was very slow. It sounds like thrusters were going against it.
Ax quickly catches this up after this. He's waiting down there in the dome. It was Elfangor who found the 5 humans. They were the ones who told me of Elfangor's last minutes of life. He had broken Andalite law and custom by giving these humans the power to morph. I was shocked, but tried to hide it. So we already know Ax has been keeping a secret, which is his reaction to what Elfangor did. And they had witnessed Elfangor's death. This is going back to the book. His cold-blooded murder by the Yeerk overlord, Visser 3. Visser 3, who slaughtered my helpless wounded brother. Visser 3, the only Yeerk ever to infest and in control an Andalite body. Visser 3, known to all Andalites as the Abomination. I think that's the first time we heard that.
That's the first I know of it.
The only Andalite controller. He's setting up here what he already told us in Megamorphs, but it's good to be reminded. He had killed Elfangor, and I had inherited a terrible burden. By Andalite custom, I would be required to avenge my brother's death. Someday, I would have to kill Visser 3. I think this makes it more clear that I think Ax is going to kill Visser 3 someday.
Yeah.
Well, here's hoping.
At least it's his mission right now. It's his whole why I fight is kind of to kill Visser 3, right?
It's the most violent mission we have yet, right?
Yeah.
Free Tom, don't be burb, save the whales.
Oh, stop the environmental. She wants to save Earth.
Yes, stop the destruction of the environment and all
Which could
species.
flippantly be referred to as save the whales. And then Rachel's is damn my divorced parents.
And stop making little girls cry.
No more broken homes.
And
That's
then
Rachel's.
And Marco's is my mom is well employed.
We know the rest, and we catch up with Ax where he is post end of Megamorphs, actually. They do confirm that the events of Megamorphs happen in here.
Which we suspected they might not. So
there's a couple interesting things to hit here. I think the first three are at the top of the page. Would you mind hitting the first three in sequence, Miranda?
Well, so first he starts this chapter with Earth, ... to
counterbalance the prologue of before
because
Earth.
The prologue said before Earth, this says Earth. Then we get the first of what's going to become a staple here, and that is journal entries from Ax, written as though there's some sort of like expedition dialogue that has since been quoted.
It's so good. I love it so much. It's like, later, 100 years from now, this is going to, or like 700, 800 years from now, this is going to be like Sun Tzu's Art of War.
Yeah, exactly. Or like this is going to be required reading in Andalite schools.
Totally.
So our first, do we want to read the first journal entry? Just to give
do.
Okay.
I think we should read each one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first journal entry says, the first thing an Andalite may notice about humans is that they walk around on only 2 legs. It is very strange to see so many creatures balancing that way, but despite this, they seldom fall over. From the Earth Diary of Ax-similation.
Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Oh, wonderful.
So I was not sold on these while I was reading. And I'm already decided I'm going to be, because I hear the enthusiasm that you two have for it, I'm going to be more open-minded to it. But I was like,
you don't have to be.
No. I think I already hear your points. So I'm like,
do you remember when we heard that article, when we read that article about how to have a good podcast where one person has to disagree? Maybe we should try that on. Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I think hearing Miranda read it in that voice actually did make it more endearing for me. But I was just like, I think this book, maybe it's not dense, but there's just, we have a lot introduced here. And
yes.
I don't know. I think I'm trying to figure out who Ax is, the voice of Ax. And I think hearing it as like something that, I don't know when Ax started writing this, but like, I really like the character that we'll get here of him wanting to learn more about humans. So I think if I think of it in that vein, it makes more sense. But let's jump in. We have to jump into the narration.
Every single book has started with some version of I can't tell you my last name.
True.
Oh, that's true. And this one...
In this book, it literally starts, my full name is
That's a really good
Ax-similation
It's such
as
a good point, yeah.
Esthil.
So yes, he introduces himself with his full name. He gives us a description of himself, and then he tries to give you a description of humans, and it's very strange. He also says he doesn't think he's like a deer because deer have mouths. But
What's a weird quibble, but I'll take it.
He says something interesting. It's just the way he phrases it. He says, as an Andalite, I have the power to morph. It's not something we're born with. It's a technology.
Which,
and he's like,
yeah,
we invented it.
It means it's Maybelline.
Oh, yeah, he's not born with it. It's Maybelline. But yeah, I don't know. The claiming of that is so weird, right? Like, they haven't shared it with anybody but they're starting to refer to it as being somehow innate to the Andalites, even though it is just a technology that they've used to change themselves.
It is weird to call it innate, but it is defining of them. It's almost like in Next Generation, Romulans have cloak technology, and it's a whole thing where it's like, if you see someone cloaking, they must be working with the Romulans.
So we know how much the Yeerks value that they have an Andalite morph, and therefore have the power to morph. And people talk about morphing like it's something they only have because they have the Andalite morph. Why aren't they just trying to get morph cubes?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because theoretically, the Andalite that's being controlled would know about it.
Yeah.
God, that's a disgustingly
I could do some
game-breaking question.
reaching for the book. If I were writing this series,
can you give us your reach and also your like dismissal?
My reach to explain how is that maybe in an extension of Ciro's kindness, which we'll learn about, even most Andalites aren't given the full story of how their technology works. And morphing power from the cube is something that is given to them at a young enough age that they don't really remember it, if that's how Andalite memory works. And so they may not know that you can just steal a cube because only an Andalite of a certain rank would even know what the morph cube is.
So that makes me wonder. So one, we have to assume that those cubes are really rare, right? And maybe Elfangor wasn't even supposed to have that cube on his ship.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I can see that for sure.
Oh my goodness.
Because Ax
and it could even be new. It could even be brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he knows that he gave them the power to morph, and he's shocked that he did it because it breaks the rule, but he's not like, how did he do that?
Right.
Yeah.
So he has to know that it's possible. Maybe it used to be done with some big machine and they've just developed, like, this is newly researched portable technology. So maybe the Andalite that Visser 3 controls, as far as he knows, the only things that can do it are these big giant things on, like, the motherships.
Which sounds in line with, like, that aligns with, like, how I imagine our military would do it. It's like they give high tech, but they are very careful about who knows what, when, where, and why. Yeah.
So do you think, here's the other thing I think, when do you think people acquire the power to morph? Is it at birth? Is it almost like baptism?
My thought on that is that it is a military technology.
Okay. So not everyone has it.
It just seems like they're very militaristically focused. Honor is such a deeply coded thing across their entire culture, to the point where, like, we find out later Ax's dad even performs it.
Yeah.
Well, he does say, so we invented morphing technology and we are the only race in the galaxy that has it, except for my human friends. That is, they can morph too, but it's thanks to Andalite science. This pride's going to be there the whole book. And thanks to the fact that my brother broke our own laws to give them this power. The one great problem with morphing is the time limit, 2 Earth hours. Is that then, if they designed the technology, is that a limitation that the Andalites created deliberately, or is that the longest that they could do it without?
Well, so this is like, there is an interesting thing, especially with the military, where they're like incredibly reticent to talk about how technology works, but technology has limits based upon how it works.
Yeah, I would say that I don't think it's something that they set themselves because it's too dangerous.
Okay, so now things will get light, because we find out that Ax and his friends are on a very particular mission right now.
That's right.
They're going to see a movie.
That's right. With Ax in human morph. So he can only stay for the first half.
They're on Cassie's property, right? They're in the forest.
Yeah, they start out there.
Ax has an easement.
Yeah.
To it.
They start out there. They bring back something that, you know, I had thought they'd sort of forgotten about. While he's morphing, Rachel makes a comment about, like, clothes. And Ax again brings up this idea that he has incorporated his morph suit into his human morph, despite not wearing it as an Andalite.
Yeah, he has a shoe colon.
They put
shoe
bladder, or what I think is what I said, yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't want them to forget that they did that. I want to know how this works. I'm really angry about it.
I'm like very challenged by a lot of the like minutia of certain things.
So, but also what Rachel's saying, that, tell me if I'm totally off base here. Could Ax differentiate between a human morph without clothes and a human morph with clothes if Rachel's saying that? Like, is it almost like Ax is forgetting to morph the clothes? He's leaving the shoes.
That is the fucking implication. Yeah. You're not missing that.
Yeah.
That is in the grammar. That is right there on the page. And that is what is so fucking baffling to me.
A totally other question. They're used to seeing Ax naked, right?
Yeah.
Because he's Andalite morph. He's constantly naked, so it's not like...
We don't know anything about Andalite genitals, though.
Yeah. Oh my god. Well, they're right there on the damn Andalite, let me tell you.
No, I'm just saying, like, if they just look like deer, like, then they're probably pretty unobtrusive unless you go looking for them.
Which, these are teenagers. They've gone looking.
This whole scene, if we're reading it like roughly a page per minute, whatever, that's generous because those are double-spaced pages in Hollywood. But this is valuable minutes of a morph they're trying to use to go see a fucking movie, and they're going to have to sit through previews. They're going to have to wait in line to get popcorn. None of this makes sense. There is no way. Like, they make him get dressed and then they don't help him. Because they're like, ooh, naked, and it's like, if you're trying to get to a movie and be discreet, help the kid dress.
True.
Just dress the boy. We caffeinated the boy.
Now we dress the boy.
Rachel will dress the boy. She picked out clothes for him.
She did, but she didn't help him put him on. He had to put it together like the fucking Shrine of the Silver Monkey and freaking.
So yeah, we get some descriptions of all the Animorphs. We do get a new lore drop from Ax, a term that I've seen thrown around, and I had sort of pieced together what it meant. He refers to Tobias as a nothlit, as in someone who is permanently trapped in morph. And he will occasionally, through the book, ride this idea of Tobias has still not asked him if it's possible
to be saved.
Be saved.
Yeah.
I do want to hit. I really read that paragraph just because I think I like this.
It's a beautiful paragraph.
I like Ax and Tobias's relationship. So we get, for a long time, I expected Tobias to ask me a question that must have haunted him day and night, whether it would ever be possible for him to escape his hawk body, but he never did. I guess he was afraid of the answer, so I didn't volunteer one. I actually we get a lot of Tobias in this book.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. And it's weirdly insightful.
Ax has another mission. He just states it explicitly here, the page before, when they're talking about going to the movie. Maybe I would never be the big hero Elfangor was, but I could surely become the biggest expert on humans. And that's something.
Yes.
We get 2 anatomy points that feel very important to me. We learn how many hearts an Andalite has. They have 3 total hearts because he says there was a scary little jolt as my second and third heart stopped beating. So that's wild. Okay, so it's one more than a Time Lord.
2 stomachs, 3 hearts.
But then the other thing I want to hit is we get a good look at their many-fingered hands.
We finally get answers.
Yeah. 2 fingers on each hand. So we have both of our hands, right? 2 fingers on each hand melted together, leaving me with 5-fingered hands. Implies to me 5 non-thumb fingers and a thumb. Not 7. But I'm counting 6 fingers, counting the thumb.
Yeah, that is all it would be.
And strong fingers, he says later. So it seems that humans have stronger arms and hands. They're like less important to the Andalite build.
Marco was talking about that in Megamorphs with the puny Andalite arms.
Which you kind of like.
Yeah, then we get a pretty wild morph description, but it's kind of like weird in reverse. Like, it's like, he talks about everything that's missing. He loses the hearts, he loses the fingers, and then he's like, my spine continued to shorten. In fact, it sucked completely out of my tail.
Yeah.
Which, oh my God, which left my tail as limp as a rope. Like, Jesus Christ,
just
dude.
A rope of flesh.
I just punched my microphone. You're going to have to edit that out. So Rachel's like, put on the clothing I picked for you. She makes him look like a dandy yachter.
Yeah,
a dandy yacht
bit of
boy.
a preppy polo boy. Rachel has been hitting this point hard that she thinks that they should actually just still be trying to beat the shit out of the Yeerks because they destroyed the Kandrona. But this is apparently after the planned normal weekend of Megamorphs didn't go over, so well. They're trying for another normal weekend, or at least a normal evening. They're going to take Ax to the movie and teach him about humans.
Yeah, it's a little bit controversial that they're taking a break, but even Ax is on board with taking a break. They list their accomplishments. They mention the Valik that they beat, and now we are taking some well-deserved vacation time because they didn't actually get it during the whole Valik thing. Ax wants to learn more about humans, so that's what we're doing. Ax says, I was never exactly a great student, but I could just imagine how my fellow Andalites would act when they finally rescued me. So he's imagining, like, how would he feel if they showed up and he didn't know anything new about humans? So he says the trick would be to learn about the humans without letting them learn too much about the Andalites, which is kind of the whole problem that Ax has in this book, that he wants to learn about the humans, but without sharing anything in exchange. There were things I could never tell the humans, things that might turn them against me. So he's actually worried that they won't trust the Andalites and therefore him if he lets them know too much, right?
That's right.
This set my hair on end.
Yeah.
I was on high alert from book 1, but this I had let my guard down since meeting Ax in book 4.
Oh, by the time he said this, though, when he said that, I went, yep. You know what I mean? I'm like, sure do know what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rachel's still pushing for fighting, Jake pushing for not, and they're like, look, we're doing this, okay? And Jake, gives Rachel a very firm talking to about how they're going to have fun and no one, Rachel, is going to look for a fight.
Yeah.
And then Marco has workshopped his Arnold joke from last book.
I really like this because it's totally overcompensating. Like, he's like, isn't Jake hot when he does this? Yeah. And it's like,
He likes it specifically when Jake gets forceful.
He says he gets all Schwarzenegger, just like he did last book, but he skips the bit where he tries to do the impression.
Thank God. That did not carry on the page well. Yeah. And at the very end of this chapter, they're discussing how good he looks and how good a job Rachel did. And it's like, he looks dweeby is the implication. Everybody thinks he looks cute, especially Cassie and Rachel. Tobias chimes in, well, that's the kiss of death right there. Ax is worried by that phrase. That phrase translates immediately into Andalite. And he's like, wait, am I about to die? And then he's like, just an expression, Ax man. Yeah. And then we learned that Tobias has been calling him Ax man.
That's what he calls him.
In the woods together. Yeah.
There's one other thing, another context for this book is that they're wondering how destroying the Kandrona specifically has affected the Yeerks, and that's important.
Oh, that's a really good catch, because all of us had this discussion when they did it in book 7. We were all wondering how fast it would happen, and then in the Megamorphs, I guess we gave it a pass because it's a sub-series, but it's like, okay, I guess they're not addressing the fact that they supposedly starved the Yeerks, but we've seen no evidence of the Yeerks, and apparently that carries into this, is that, like, for the past few weeks, there's been no evidence that the Yeerks have been hurt at all.
So Jake says, I expected to see Yeerks dying left and right and former controllers walking free again. Hasn't happened. Somehow they've maintained. Cassie says, we can't know what is going on with the Yeerks. Just because we haven't seen them suffer doesn't mean
unknown
they haven't.
Unknowns. The one thing I do think at the very end of this, at the chapter, is they say to Ax, come on, Ax, Prince Jake said, smiling, let's do this. If anyone tries to beat you up, we'll protect you. Unless you get trapped in Hawkmorph, at which point we can no longer protect you and your Tobias.
Yeah, and you will be relegated to supporting character at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
They're in the movie. They're watching the previews. Ax thinks that they actually just saw the movie and it didn't make sense. Prince Jake is like, that was a preview, Ax.
Yeah, they're trying to, like, distract Ax with food. They're like, maybe have some popcorn. Do something normal for once.
They're like, be careful, though, because you know how you get with food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like really fucked up if you think about it. It's like, hey, I know you're addicted to the substance, but, like, you should have a little to even out. But, like, don't get carried away. It's like,
I just
totally
think you
fucked.
not on uppers is not a good time, okay? I'm not saying you need to be waking up with cocaine. I'm just saying, like...
Yeah. Like, maybe go to sleep with cocaine.
For everyone keeping track at home, Marco does seem to be sitting next to Ax at the movie.
Marco makes Ax's special responsibility. It's a thing.
Yeah.
And we get a really good description of popcorn from Ax. He's like, the texture was rough and strange. and the flavor. It reminded me of a food called pizza, but there was just a hint of cigarette butts, which I also enjoy. Although Prince Jake had told me never to eat cigarette butts again. They are bad for you. And I just, something about that, like literally I laughed out loud while reading it. I have no idea what happened, but something about which I also enjoy. It's like, oh, I was actually out at a bar last night and someone was trying to talk about a Sesame Street character who had to be removed from the show because the character was so wild and would bang its head on stuff. And they figured out that kids were imitating it. And they were like, oh, sorry, like, we don't want that. Something about him saying, cigarette butts are delicious, you idiots. Like, get in there and eat a cigarette butt. Like, they're for free. They're just sitting in the ashtray. Get them. Your parents don't even want them.
And maybe Ax can eat whatever he wants in human morph and then morph back to Andalite and he's fine. I'm not sure. I don't know how.
Maybe. I have no idea.
Yeah, we do. Well, we think the food goes with, the baby doesn't go with, the piss goes with.
Yeah. Unclear.
We have a list.
These are questions for KA.
They're watching a Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
This is a weird thing. We find out the movie starts and he's like, what type of ship is that? And it's like, Prince Jake says, it's the fucking Enterprise, you fucking moron. Read a fucking movie. And then like, this part really bothered me because again, it's taking logical liberties with like everything you might imagine.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about Ax saying
he became bored with the plot of the movie, and then he starts correctly naming the aliens in the movie.
Yeah, well, he's mad about it. He's like, that they call this a Klingon, but it is clearly a Ungakin female. And he said, that looks like a Hodgebrand freighter.
Exactly. And it's like, what even is this as a concept? Is it the same? Like, if we're to believe the Andalite dome ship is loosely modeled off, like, I'm assuming the Enterprise, but also Deep Space Nine's spaceship or whatever, hence the dome. Mm-hmm. But like, it's like, okay, all aliens have arrived at the same conclusion for what makes a good spaceship. Thus, they look at the Enterprise and they see another ship or something like that.
And I don't know Star Trek, so I don't actually know how one-to-one these references are. I know we're getting new species here, right? Whenever they're saying, oh, that's actually
it's hard to know if they're one-to-one because we just don't know what they are.
I think this is just for parents reading along with their kids when these books came out, and they're like acknowledging that they're borrowing a lot from Star Trek.
That's a way more accurate read,
so it's like
I feel
signaling
stupid
like,
having.
But actually,
yeah, you're right. No, that's a really good point. I cede my point. Thank you.
So Ax eats a bunch of stuff. He eats a whole box of popcorn with the box. He thought it also tasted of salt and grease, so that seemed normal.
He was right.
Then he finds floor popcorn. Gotta love floor popcorn. Then he finds a smaller box, and inside it, brown globules.
Yes.
He ate them.
This drives him up a wall. It's the Cinnabon of the theater. It's so gross. He's just eating trash and food off the floor. Those brown globules could have been there for weeks.
I really love he has a line that mentions that he thinks it's really convenient that humans made the floor sticky so that it was easier to crawl on.
I wonder if that's why I started thinking about the floors on the spaceship. Because
oh my god. Oh, good call.
Yeah. He finds some M&Ms and he keeps going and he's just looking for it and looking for it. He manages to crawl over a few people in the theater and somehow Jake and Marco have not noticed he crawled away.
That's exactly
right. I think he's slithering under the seat.
It's pretty creepy.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say.
It's really creepy.
But he finds a box full of colored pellets and then he sees a human with an entire box, a whole box. A younger human, yes.
Of the brown globules.
And he begs this human.
He remembers it is human custom to ask permission before taking.
And so he screams,
please give me your brown globules at this poor child. And then he scares the piss out of this child. The child responds the only way a child knows how and says, Mommy. And then he tries to explain to Ax and Jake about his horrible addiction. He's like, I merely wish to enjoy the brown globules.
No, he's explaining that to a screaming child. It says that.
You're right. I was trying to make it better.
And as the boys drag him away, he's snatching at the box of chocolate from this child. Like he's trying to physically take it.
And scream.
Globules! Yes. Are we like...
It's so cringe.
I feel like they understood they were dumping a lot of information on readers. They're going to make a little fun scene here. But also, I feel like it's pretty goofy. But also, it does kind of read like Ax is actually loses self-control. He's a pretty controlled person, but whenever he's around food and coffee and stuff, he just loses his mind.
Ain't that just the way, though? It's like always the ones who seem the most together, when they finally lose it, they can't come back.
I remember reading this scene. Like, this scene was one that jumped out to me when I was reading it. I'm like, oh, I remember reading this as a kid. I did not like Ax because of this scene, because I couldn't believe how ridiculous he was.
But mind you, we learn that if in book 6 they had spilled a fucking container of Reese's Pieces, Visser 3 would have stopped his fucking TED Talk and gone and picked them all up. And it's E.T.
It's a weapon.
It's E.T. all over again. Reese's Pieces are what are used to lure him into the house to trap him. It's a whole thing. I think it's just E.T.
That's the one I think of. Oh, Mac with Coca-Cola.
Mac?
Oh, yeah, of course.
From Mac.
Yeah, Mac and Me. That's a great movie. Fucking.
This is your
it's a great
Roxanne
movie.
and Zeus? Zeus and Roxanne?
No, it was like...
You're going to Google it later and be mad at us.
It's literally on Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's like a known terrible movie.
Chapter 3, here we go. Let's go. There are many dangers for an Andalite and human morph. For one thing, there is a constant danger that you will fall off your 2 legs. The slightest push and you can topple over. But worse, by far, is the danger of taste. Taste is the sense that can drive an Andalite mad, especially if it involves cinnamon buns or chocolate. From the Earth Diary of Ax-similation.
Marco and Jake pull Ax out of the theater. He can't even make it through half of a movie.
No, and he's still kind of coming down. Like, he's like, I'm fine, but he's still
like,
kind of
I'm cool.
Yeah.
What were those?
Yeah. Where do I get more of the chocolate? Like,
so we find out, it was the brown globules were Raisinets, the pellets were M&Ms.
Cassie and Rachel kind of appear and are watching them from, in front of them all. They had been posted at the Nordstrom in case of need to emergency morph across from the theater. So they noticed their sudden exit and followed, but don't want to be detected as a group, so they're watching.
Right.
Yeah.
Still trying to play
What
it cool.
kind of short straw situation was this that Jake and Marco got to go see the movie? But
Marco rigged it.
Yeah.
Tobias swoops down and says, whoa, was the movie so bad that you're out already? But of course, and this is the only reason why I'm saying this is because this is where another previously established lore thing gets overwritten, which is incredibly annoying. So he asked that in thought speak because he's an Othlite who's trapped in bird morph, and no one can reply because they're all on the ground because they can't respond in thought speak. And then Ax says to himself, he says, and since I was in a human body, I too was restricted to spoken language.
That doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
No sense. We all agree it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, we should mention that the group is trying to keep their distance from each other. Like, Jake and Marco were already best friends, so they're in one
Cassie
group.
and Rachel were a duo,
Yeah.
so they're both at the mall as 2 separate groups.
But, so
Right.
they're trying at least to stay a little bit separate.
What they're trying to do is recreate the conditions of book 1 where they all initially met, hoping that another alien will crash to the Earth. And it kind of happens. They recreate the mall conditions, and Tobias, flying their eye in the sky, Tobias says, hey, some shit's going down around the corner of the mall. There's a guy yelling, and I'm pretty sure he shouted the word Yeerk.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing plot moment. Suddenly, they're like, okay, we got to split up, but we need to go check this sitch out.
Well, the man appears to them. He's having difficulties standing. He leans around the outer wall of the store and staggers forward. People are starting to stare. Listen to me, he cries. Listen to me. They're here. They're here. They're everywhere. The Yeerks are here. So he's kind of like he's a little bit more grounded than the woman we saw in the shack, but it's kind of that situation where this person.
But it is that same situation, and that is cool. I hadn't noticed that, Ed, but that's cool because it goes to the theory of maybe her Yeerk passed and they didn't catch her.
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
And Ax, for some reason, he seems more blasé about it, but I don't know why he's so blasé about it.
Yeah.
Because Rachel's like, why is it happening now? Why has it been 2 weeks since we destroyed the Kandrona and nothing has happened?
Right, because we know that they have to feed every 3 days, which is a huge restriction.
And we know that their replacement Kandrona is not coming for 3 weeks.
At least 2 weeks. Right.
From when they destroyed it.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a big gap.
He's like, I don't know, something broke. But I don't know. It's just a weirdly blasé answer, and I didn't feel like he was being...
It annoys me when a book like does a thing where it's like, well, it's just happening now, and then the book sort of shrugs its shoulders, which is kind of what it feels like. But I will say that like this is sort of Chekhov's shoulder shrug in that like they're going to... I just say that because one friend of mine who listens to the show hates it when I say that, so I just make a rule to say it.
Good.
Gotcha. Is it all of us?
It seems like the Yeerk is actually trying to slither out of the ear. It's doing that death thing. And we can assume that what did Jake...
The fugue.
Yeah.
And now we can... The Yeerk, he actually seems to be starting to pull it out of his ear. The sirens are going, so police and ambulances are arriving. Jake is like, oh, I've been through this. I know what's happening for him.
And then they all seem to sort of celebrate. Like they think this is finally... They're willing to take it at face value. Maybe it's just working.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Jake gets really excited to the point like book 1 level excited where he's like acting kind of automatically, being elated and talking louder and louder. Like, yes, we're doing it. Like, you know, like these people are like their Yeerks are dying and they'll be free.
And we're kind of led to believe that maybe Jake is thinking about Tom. Like, oh, maybe Tom's Yeerk will start to... Like, there's the personal investment there.
Yeah, that seems to be what Ax thinks. Yeah. Because Ax is watching this happen. Rachel is still somewhat skeptical of the celebration that's going on and is being like, we have to, like, there's still something fishy about this. We have to figure it out. And Ax pays her a compliment in saying she's a true warrior because she does not underestimate her enemies.
Cool, Ax.
But Ax, you know, he's like, they believed they had won the war. It made me sad for them because I knew the truth. And then he's like, I almost told Jake, you know, because I know it would make him feel not feel better.
The thing...
But with Tom as a controller, as his brother, knowing the truth feels like something he deserves.
This bothers me too, because the truth that he wants to share is like knowledge of how the Yeerks operate, which like doesn't exactly change much in general. Like it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's a way to broach this topic that isn't a lie of omission, where it's like...
I agree. As we will come to know, and I mean, I described Ciro's kindness as the prime directive because it basically is.
Yeah, you're right.
But I agree with you, what does this violate? He's not telling them about some piece of technology. He's not telling them about some sort of secret Andalite knowledge. It's just,
he's literally just being tight-lipped.
You know, when someone could out them, they just kill them.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't be feasibly re-yeerked. So like this guy went crazy. He's not useful and he knows who they are. He's got to die.
So the thing that I'm just going to hit here, because this is what happens in this scene, is so the Animorphs are all celebrating and Ax narrates the police surrounded the man and hustled him to the ambulance. It was hard to see unless you were expecting it. The moment when one of the policemen drew a small steel cylinder from his pocket and pressed it against the back of the man's neck. And they're all continuing to celebrate. Cassie's like, I can't believe it. Maybe it's really going to happen. Maybe people will realize the truth. Again, I thought of telling them the truth, that the human was already gone, that the Yeerk slug would crumble into dust, that no evidence would be left behind. But even though these humans were my friends, even though we fought side by side, there were secrets I could not tell them. I could not tell them how a race of parasitic slugs had come to be a danger to the entire galaxy. I could not tell them why we Andalites had to fight the Yeerks, why we had no choice but to fight them, why we hated them so deeply. We have secrets, we Andalites, and the greatest secret of all is our own guilt.
And then he goes, it's great!
I feel like the only thing, and I'm not even saying that I give Ax this benefit of the doubt, but I feel like the thing we always have to hold with why is Ax doing this? Why is this person doing this? Is just that he's a kid and that he's still a baby. Like, he's not a baby, but he's like,
he's a baby. No, but he is. Yeah. No, I think like teenagers are just given too much credit and yet their frontal lobes haven't hardened.
Yeah, this is. I've been waiting to figure out a good. Like, the more we talk about it, the more I think it's like obviously a very deliberate thing. Ax is kind of set up to parallel Jake, and that he has a really cool older brother. But Jake, because he saw his brother get yerked, he had that kind of moment that probably would have happened in its own way through development anyway, where he's like, oh, my cool older brother is actually just a person and he makes mistakes, and like he would have had that thing where the playing field gets leveled. But Ax had his older brother preserved in his death as a legendary hero. He's not even like a star athlete.
A really good
He's
point.
Like,
and in fact,
star soldier.
we will see that people care so much about how much a star his brother is, that even if some sort of information that humbled him somehow were to come into existence, it would not be accepted by anyone.
And Ax would fall on the sword. He's like,
Yeah.
And so I feel like Ax is a character here in this book in particular where he's always wondering what would Elfangor do? And he's trying to live up to this brother that he's never going to be able to confirm or update his suspicions. Like, he's trying to be someone that doesn't actually exist, because Elfangor presumably is just a person and not like a Christ figure, but Ax carries him around like that.
So we cut to Ax doing a cute little morning ritual. You know, it's his little morning 5-minute makeup routine. He shows us this Andalite ritual, which he says he learned as a cadet, and it has to do with like being a warrior. He says he doesn't really necessarily buy into the whole thing, but you got in trouble if you didn't take it seriously.
I can read it quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. He says to himself, "From the water that gave birth to us," I said, and I dipped my right forehoof into the water. It was the beginning of the morning ritual. "From the grass that feeds us," I said, and moved back to crush a small tuft of grass beneath the same hoof. "For the freedom that unites us," I spread my arms wide. "We rise to the stars." I looked with all 4 of my eyes at the rising sun. I didn't realize he stared right at it. I sighed. This was pretty pointless. I had never been a big believer in rituals. I mean, if you're going to be a warrior, you have to do it. And any Arish that gets caught rushing through will be verbally reprimanded. And then we get, I bowed low. "Freedom is my only cause. Duty to the people, my only guide. Obedience to my prince, my only glory." I hesitated. Oh, Tobias starts watching him and he finishes the ritual. That's why he's hesitating. "The destruction of my enemies, my most solemn vow." I straightened up again, then assumed a fighting stance. "I, Ax-similation, Andalite warrior cadet, offer my life." With that, I drew my tail blade forward and pressed it against my own throat. Then I relaxed my tail. This was part of the ritual that called for contemplation. You're supposed to think about the parts of the ritual and ask yourself if you were living up to them. You know, it's kind of like meditating.
That's the other thing.
No,
and
it's wild.
And he goes through them. He's like, do I want to destroy my enemies? Yeah, but I didn't destroy the one enemy I needed to destroy.
I feel like this is the other thing, is that Ax is kind of actively deprogramming right now. Like, this is probably his first time away from this, like, stuff that he internalized at a young age. Like,
totally. And while you were talking about sort of him being green, like, all I could think was that he has been radicalized.
Yeah.
Like, he has been radicalized.
By, like,
He's been
imperialism, or I don't know what we want to call
exactly.
it.
But I think that's it.
I mean, we know he was taught that humans are not... Humans are something he studied in school. They're not something he's been taught or is equal. And the fact that he's made inroads with humans, I mean, he's kind of been forced to. He's been in a really vulnerable position, but he's actually making pretty good progress in terms of like, oh, maybe these are actually people I could be friends with. Yeah.
In terms of Ax-simulating?
Yeah, Ax-simulating. There we go. Yeah.
He says that if Elfangor had lived and people had found out about what he'd done by giving the morph cube to them, he would have been demoted. He wouldn't have even been a prince anymore.
Yeah.
He would have been over.
So yeah, that's the other thing, is that his like hero, Elfangor, like his older brother, has also done something that seemingly goes completely against everything that they believe in. Is this where we get Ciro's kindness? Is that right?
Yeah, well, this is actually and this is a critical detail because he's like, Seer's kindness has never been broken in a way that gave another species the ability to morph.
Yes.
Right? Like, we get that specifically Seer's kindness has been broken. Technology has been divulged to an alien species that wasn't Andalites from Andalites before, but it wasn't morphing.
Not morphing.
I'm just going to say, a feeling I'm having reading all this is poor Ax. Like, Ax is all alone working through all this stuff, and he can't even talk to his friends about it. Even though he's being kind of an asshole to his friends, because the Andalites are assholes. Ax is very lonely, and he has no one he can talk to anything about, and that's kind of sad. But then Tobias flies in.
Rolls up, yeah. First, he just lies. So firstly, he starts this conversation with a lie. Tobias doesn't even ask him how he is. He asks what's up, and he chooses to lie and say, I'm fine. And if someone responds to what's up with, I'm fine, you know they're not fine.
Yeah, that should be a rule.
Yeah.
But Tobias wants to ask about this little morning ritual he's been seeing him do. And Ax is like, oh yeah, it keeps me humble, #blessed. So while they're having this little conversation about how cool his ritual is, Tobias notices a rattlesnake behind Ax.
Chekhov's rattlesnake.
And is like, oh, be careful. And Ax is like, oh, this rattling, I hear it all the time. Who cares?
It's my tail.
And he's like, oh, rattlesnakes are poisonous. He's like, oh, now I know. And I'm like, actually, they're venomous, but, whatever. And he's not fast enough. The rattlesnake bites at him, but gets his hoof. He manages to, get his foot away, but it's so fast that even an Andalite couldn't, stop it. And then he sort of, scoops it up and throws it with his tail, but he acquires it first.
And we'll just put a little pin in that.
Some would call it a Chekhov spin.
Yeah, see, Tobias doesn't know why he would want to acquire a rattlesnake, but his answer is just, it's fast, and I have fewer morphs than you guys.
Yeah.
He specifically says earth morphs, which makes me wonder, going back to that question of why we've never seen him morph a non-earth animal, is it Seer's kindness? Does he believe it would be wrong to show them creatures they don't know exist, even though he just named them in the Star Trek movie?
Oh, that's a very generous read.
He says, I have fewer Earth morphs than the others. And I was like, that seems to imply that he has morphs that aren't from Earth, and for some reason he's never shown us any of them.
That is a really good point.
It is totally, but it is totally confirmed in a later diary entry that he has morphs from both planets.
Yeah.
Tobias lets Ax know that there's a big mystery they're all wondering about and talking about when he's not around, about how he eats if he doesn't have a mouth. And then Ax just says, well, I have hooves, don't I? And Tobias goes, oh,
such a such a cheeky
I don't know why Tobias doesn't think he can follow up on that. He seems to think it'd be really rude to follow up on that. I'm like, I think you can follow up on that.
Yeah. It feels like a yes-anding. Like he just yes-anded you.
Yeah.
Tobias and Ax go running off through the woods. Ax is like, oh, I had classes on humans and xenobiology. Earlier, he referred to them being called by Andalites, like he called them like a decently intelligent or a reasonably intelligent species. Mm-hmm. But he says that most of what he actually got in his section on xenobiology was television programs like news shows and music videos.
Yeah. Music, entertainment and music.
Tobias posits, what, you were watching MTV?
Well, this is actually an interesting thing because, in Earth history, when we invented the radio, we were just nuts about it. And we would broadcast everything we made for free.
That is true.
Really loud.
That is
because
true.
we didn't know how to do it efficiently. And now that we have fiber optic cables and stuff like that, there's far less information from us bleeding out into space. So that actually stands to reason that, Animorphs saw Leave It to Beaver. Yeah.
So you're saying aliens can no longer steal my cable.
Tobias asks Ax if he's continuing his project of getting to know humans, and Ax says, yes, I'm actually going to school today. They get to a narrow spur of woods. Tobias is keeping his eyes out. I think Ax is actually in position to morph for going to school.
Yes, and Cassie and Jake, I think, are coming to kind of like shield him a little bit.
There's a really sweet moment here between Tobias and Ax where
this is huge.
Because Ax is starting to realize that they're both on the outside. Like Ax as an Andalite on Earth and Tobias as a human trapped in a hawk morph. He asks Tobias, will you... I mean, you'll be alone today. You'll be alone today while I'm with the others.
I'll take Tobias.
Okay, go ahead.
What? Like I can't get along without you, Axeman? I've got places to go, things to do, feathers to preen, rodents to eat. Besides, Ax, Jake has already asked me to fly cover over the school while you're in there.
And then Ax thinks, I don't know why, but it made me feel better to think that Tobias would be in the sky above me all day.
Honestly, it would make me feel so good to think that.
Sometimes I think Tobias and I could be true Shorm. A Shorm is a deep friend, someone you never lie to, someone who knows all your secrets. The word Shorm means tail blade. See, it's supposed to mean a person you would trust so much that they could put their tail blade right up against your throat and you wouldn't even worry. Sometimes I think Tobias and I could be like that. We are both cut off from our own people. We're both alone. But if we were friends, I would have no secrets from Tobias. And even though he was a hawk in form, he was still a human. And I am an Andalite. And no matter how much I sometimes wished for a real friend, there had to be a wall between my people and the humans, between me and the humans. Getting too close to any alien species is a mistake. We are taught that. We may protect them, defend them, care for them, but they can never be deep friends.
And I think this is going to be a large part of Ax's main problem for the book. Like, we've talked about his Why I Fight being Visser 3, but his, like, core struggle that he's facing is whether or not he's truly an Andalite separated from his people, and what it means to represent Andalites on the world stage.
Yeah.
Versus how he feels about his friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the galactic stage.
I mean, it makes we've been talking a lot about the fact that Ax isn't listed as an anamorph and Tobias is. And I feel like that's kind of getting played out here because he feels apart from the others.
And he purposely is putting himself apart from the others. It's not even... And that's why Ax said in the last book, in his own narration, like, he didn't list himself as an anamorph.
I think it's really telling that he says getting too close to any alien species is a mistake. We are taught that. Like, he immediately follows that up. Like, it sounds like something he believes, but it's actually something he's been programmed to believe.
He's
Absolutely.
like...
Chapter 5.
I have morphed some Andalite animals, and I have morphed many strange Earth animals. But the animal I morphed the most is the human animal. They are weak, slow, half-blind, and unstable, but no Andalite should laugh at them. Humans rule their planet, and as the human Rachel once said, Earth is a tough neighborhood. From the Earth Diary of Ax-similation.
And so now we get the scene of him approaching school. He's walking up close enough. He's in morph range. I don't know why they do this. I don't know why they like get so close to morph. Anyway, but Tobias says, no, it's fine. They're looking right at you, but they all got glasses on.
Can I say one throwback I want to do all the way to the movie, all the way to the movie thing?
Please,
when he describes sitting as a strange action where you bend yourself and rest your weight upon your fat deposits located halfway down your back. Beauty.
Yes. Yeah.
It was so good. And I'm really glad that you brought that up. He's about to bring that up as he gets into the desk at school. No, but he hates it. But then he says, like, I'm becoming a very good human.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's something that I, like, Eddie, I don't know why, but like, you would play Ax in the movie for me.
Because of the line, I'm becoming a very...
You saying earnestly, I am becoming very good at being a human. It's something you would say to me with a full grin on your face, and I would lose it. Yeah. I would lose it.
So Ax finishes his morph. He starts talking to Jake. Jake is going to bring this person nobody knows into school for a day.
His cousin
Philip.
And just say he's his cousin Philip.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know it
Who's
was
Ax
the
in
90s.
disguise with a mustache on.
I know it was the 90s, guys. But, like, were they
It's
really just
pre-9/11.
letting children who don't
9/11.
go there?
Pre-9/11.
Okay.
I know, but it's a child who doesn't go there, and they're just going to let him spend the day there?
Miranda, I totally agree with what you're saying in theory, but we had people come through people. I swear people's cousins would just come into school, and
Yep.
I was always, I don't know if I wondered at the time, but I,
Okay.
like, is there a paper trail for the fact that this person is here? Like, anyway, Ax is at school. He's cousin Philip.
Yes.
He gets introduced to the other Animorphs as cousin Philip.
Rachel pretends to know him since she would know him.
Rachel is
in theory,
Rachel is like,
since-
yo, we're cousins, dude. I know how this goes. Eddie, take it away.
A human has only 2 eyes. Both are on the front of the face. It is the same with most Earth species. These human eyes are very similar to our own main eyes, but humans seem fascinated by my stalk eyes. One of the humans, Marco, has said they creep him out big time. I believe this is a compliment. From the Earth eye.
You're not wrong.
I think Marco's
You're not
flirting
wrong.
with me.
I think
Although Marco is
Marco's
also
negging you.
the big one to take everything as a compliment, so he may have just learned that trait from Marco.
Oh my god, they're so cute
Oh, there's
together. I'm so
a
stoked
good
about
moment
it.
here with Mark. Marco has a really funny
Yeah.
line here. So they're in school. Cassie says something from, I swear, from a totally different flavor of teen, like, movie or TV show. She says, here it is,
Totally.
school, or as I like to think of it, purgatory. Like it's like Daria or something.
Yeah, like, I've always gotten the impression Cassie likes
Yeah.
school.
Same.
But I think
same.
she doesn't love the social aspect of it. So she's like, it's a place I have to go to do the thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We get, as usual, the humans. He's talking about the teens at school. As usual, they were dressed in a shocking variety of clothing. Clothing is not a uniquely human idea, but of course, Andalites do not indulge in it. However, when I am in human morph, I must wear clothing. All of my human friends agree. Even Tobias agree on this.
Even
They agree
Tobias
very strongly on this point. And then he sees Rachel and Marco.
lends more credence. It lends more credence to our tiny pants theory.
Yeah.
Yes.
For Tobias.
Tobias is like, I'm part bird, part boy, so since I am still part boy, I wear pants.
The boy is on the bottom.
This part is really good. So Rachel and Marco approach. Ax says, my other human friends tell me that Rachel is beautiful and Marco is cute. As an Andalite, I don't observe either trait. However, when I am in human morph, I begin to see that Rachel actually is very beautiful, but I never see that Marco is cute.
I only see that he too is exceptionally beautiful.
No, it's so overcompensating. He's like, no, not twerpy Marco. No, I would never want to kiss him.
I feel like maybe what happened was they sent out a first draft to Scholastic. Scholastic was like, you have to make it very clear that Ax doesn't think that Marco's cute. And so they made a point of making it really over
I
the
bet
top.
you that is it. I think that's it. Scholastic is closeted.
Yes, yeah.
And they're just waiting to come out. Clifford, hey.
Life's hard
Clifford.
enough with a big red dog. If he had to be a big gay red dog, like. Marco and Rachel walk up, and Jake says, "Hi,
Big
Marco."
gay red dog. I'm sorry.
Hi, Marco. Rachel, meet my cousin, Philip. And Ax says, "Yes, I am Prince Jake's cousin, Philip. I am from out of state." And Marco makes a smile, and he goes, "You're from way, way out of state." He also he has to stop calling
That
him
is-
Prince. Yeah.
When they get inside the school, I think like Marco and Rachel more or less disappear, and then Cassie and Jake are sort of like handling the Ax situation. Ax is taking observations of the situation around him.
So many doors.
Tiny doors.
Tiny doors.
Small. I would have trouble fitting through them. What do you do? Where do these doors go? Where do they lead? And Cassie's like, they're lockers. That's, you put shit in there. And then they walk up to the locker and there's a lock. And he's like, what is this? Why do you turn the
Is this
disc
some
on
sort
the
of
lock?
ritual?
Is this some sort of ritual? Yeah, exactly. And then
It
she's
was
like,
decorated with numbers.
and she's like, I'm locking up my shit so no one takes it.
And he's like, is that a picture?
of a boy? A human boy in your locker?
And she like slams it shut and she's like, it's just a picture.
Yeah, and he was like, sure looked a lot like Prince Jacob.
And she's like, come on, Ax, come on. And he's like,
don't blow up my spot,
why
Ax.
would you have a picture of him? He's right here. You can see him. And I just love that Jake is apparently really loving this and Cassie is looking so miserable.
So what is happening here is that Jake knows that Cassie has a picture of him in her locker, but they just never
probably
talk
gave
about
her the
it, right?
picture.
Yeah, he gave her the picture,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Not like Rachel's.
Yeah, is Ax going to put it
surveillance
together when he
photos
sees
of
Tobias? Yeah.
Rachel's going around to like every like pharmacy and being like, can I look at your tapes for the last 24 hours? And then taking Polaroids of the closed circuit camera.
She's got them on
footage.
clotheslines on her wall.
Yeah. The bird was once boy.
Then a loud alarm goes off. It's almost like that alarm from back before we were on Earth when the Yeerks ships were coming. We must be under attack. It's first period.
Yeah.
Which my first period was an attack. I don't know about you, but
I was wondering. I had a bet internally.
I
about
felt
whether or not
attacked.
you make
I
that
will
joke.
say
Yeah,
that.
I'm sorry.
Jake actually has a kind of funny line where he says, Ax, it's just the bell for first period. Take it easy. People are staring because Ax has PTSD because he's a child soldier.
yeah.
And Ax says, it's not a threat. And Jake goes, no, it's not a threat. It's depressing, but not dangerous. They got all these little lines in about school, about high school.
So one thing that's true is like he gets activated while in human morph and has to deal with the physiology of that. Like because this alarm went off and because humans have an adrenaline response, he now has to deal with the adrenaline response. It's just a thing. I think it comes up a couple more times in the book.
Yeah. I had never thought about the fact that that a species could have a non-adrenaline type response to fear.
Sure.
Like, to me,
Well,
the
but also
adrenaline response
like
is so much
random
of what
activation.
fear is.
Yeah.
So Jake and Ax get to their class because Ax is shadowing Jake today. They get to Mr. Perdue's class.
Pardue.
Pardue.
The red shirt of the book. He's already having a tough day. You can tell when you walk in and teacher's already agitated and everybody's already in their seat that somebody has had a rough time.
Jake introduces his cousin. He thinks he's going to get a little pushback, but Mr. Pardue seems agitated. Yeah.
I understood sitting. I was getting pretty good at passing for human. A few lines down, he says, sitting in this desk is unpleasant. And
You got that right, dude.
Yeah.
A human I didn't know said.
Really important that if Jake couldn't have said it, it had to be someone on screen. And then the teacher goes, whoa, what's going on back there? Quiet down. What? And then he starts clutching at his head with both hands. Everyone be quiet. And
It's very Persona 5 awakening to your persona.
Yeah.
Like, if you know what I'm talking, it's very that vibe. It's very grabbing your head and screaming, what is that voice?
Jake tries to stand up and go, Mr. Pardue, are you okay?
And he just gets worse and worse. Like, worse and worse. He's like,
screaming.
stop damaging our body. And he's clawing at his skull.
Yeah. He clawed until blood began to flow, crucially.
Yeah.
Jake instantly knows what's going on, again, because Jake's been through this. Mr. Pardue starts crying. He begins cursing. He starts writhing on the floor, and everyone just stands up and they're just staring at him, horrified and helpless. And Ax jumps in and goes, did you know this teacher was a controller? Because it's now very obvious to the two of them.
And Jake's like, no, I didn't. He seemed really normal. But then, overcome with like feelings of empathy from his experience of a Yeerk dying in his head, Jake goes through to him, like gets past everybody, goes to him and kneels down next to him, holds his head in his hand and sings, "Don't you fret."
Monsieur Marius, Monsieur Mr. Perdue, you won't feel any pain. A little fall of rain can hardly yerk you now.
So he's like, the Yeerk will die. You can do this. You're gonna be free. Breathe.
Ride it out.
Ride it out. All right,
Push.
another big push.
I was surprised that Jake did this. I know he's empathizing, but like this seemed like a lot.
It was too much. He flat out, he says, the Yeerk will die, you'll be free. And like, Ax is trying to keep them far enough that they can't really hear, but like,
yeah,
he's pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, who should come in? But our favorite Innis.
Principal Yeerkman himself. Our favorite Innis 226, no less.
He said, no, he doesn't say that.
Assistant Principal Chapman. Yeah, Chapman tries to send all the kids out to the playground, which I'm a little confused about what kind of school this is.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if they're in 6th grade, maybe 6th and 7th are sometimes malleable.
How I think of it.
Yeah.
Right on that edge, yeah.
And sometimes it's like combined elementary, junior high type of thing. I don't know. And yeah, Jake doesn't want to leave his teacher's side because he's an idiot.
And they basically have a stare down. They basically have like a Clint Eastwood Western moment where they're all in the room and 2 children are not behaving like the others, and it's Ax and Jake.
Yeah.
Philip and Jake. And Chapman sort of says one more time, like, get out of here now.
Mm-hmm.
But he says it kind of, he's still not being scary. He's still being friendly Principal Chapman. He's like, Jake, you and your friend get out. He calls him by name. He knows who he is. He's his uncle, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
And like...
Yeah.
And so Ax drags him out, and Jake does hope he gets better. And then he looks at Chapman and he goes, he will get better, won't he, Mr. Chapman?
To which Chapman says, well, specifically Ennis 226 replies, who can say? Which I think is actually one of the most badass moments in the entire book series. It's so good because like there's this perverse recognition there that like is left to the reader's imagination, but like who can say is not something someone would say to a child ever.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that this might be Jake having tipped his hand.
Yeah, he might be getting
Chapman
clocked
might
here.
be official. Yeah.
Jake and Ax exit the building, right? They at least get out of the classroom.
Well, before they exit the building, they exit the room and they look back and they see
a steel cylinder pulled from
cylinder.
And into the neck of Mr. Perdue and killing him.
Which we know, yes, from the beginning, and now Jake has seen it.
Yeah.
And then he runs. He runs really hard and he gasps.
I think he has a panic attack, it kind of seems like, or he pushed his way through the others who were still clustered just outside the classroom. He ran clear outside.
Yeah.
He gasped at the air as if he did not have sufficient oxygen. I thought exercise.
Yeah, I think that's how I gasp when I run out of the room. He asks if he's sick, and that gave me the impression that he may even have been like dry heaving. And I feel like he just got really claustrophobic in that moment.
This is the big scene, you guys, though. This is the truth fall or the trust fall of
some
the book.
Of it, yeah.
This is like
phase 1.
This is really like Jake's fundamental issue with the relationship with Ax.
Yeah. I think, do you two actually, because I feel like I've been in the last few dialogues, do you want to take it, I think like,
sure.
Are you as a controller? I feel like I have it at 35%. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Jake, are you sick?
Perdue was a controller. The Yeerk was starving. And why? Because we destroyed the Kandrona? Me and you and the others, we did this?
It was necessary. We struck a powerful blow against the Yeerks by destroying the Kandrona.
Chapman killed him, didn't he? The little steel cylinder, did you see that? Not just the Yeerk, but the real Pardue. He killed them both.
At this point, Ax decides there's no point in lying because Jake saw it. If the Yeerk inside the teacher had died, the teacher would have survived and been free. He would have told other humans what happened. He would have warned them. The Yeerks can't allow witnesses.
But they're going to kill every host whose Yeerk dies, aren't they? Every human controller whose Yeerk dies is going to be eliminated. That's true, isn't it?
Yes.
We did this.
It's war.
My brother, Tom, he's a controller. What about him?
I had no answer. The Yeerks would save as many as they could, but if their emergency system was breaking down, they would do what had to be done. They would eliminate any evidence.
You knew they would do this.
Yes, I knew.
How did you know?
How
did you know the Yeerks would do this?
Because it's happened before. You think this is the first planet the Yeerks have infiltrated? Do you think Earth is the only place where we Andalites have fought them? They don't leave witnesses.
I don't like you keeping secrets from me, Ax. I'm your friend. We're your friends. We should know whatever you know. You didn't tell me about this.
Terrible things happen in war. You did what you had to do. Destroying the Kandrona was part of that war.
You can say it's a war, but I hate it.
Love the warrior, hate the war. War-ra.
It's such a bad line. I'm sorry.
It's like so not the time for him to like be playing with his mouth words. What is that? An old Andalite saying?
Yes. My brother used to say it. Yeah, you fucking love my brother, don't you? You thought he was cool.
He starts.
You know something, Ax? Yeah. You know something, Ax? Sometimes I get the feelings we humans are just pawns in this big game between you Andalites and the Yeerks. We're just ammunition in this war, aren't we? Too dumb to know what's going on. Too primitive to be real warriors.
That is not the way it is.
You fight alongside us, Ax. As far as I'm concerned, you're one of us. But then I find out you're keeping secrets. Rachel and Marco keep asking me, all the time asking me, what do we know about Ax? What has he ever told us about his own planet? While we show him everything, I told them we could trust you. Now I wonder, I really wonder, there's no trust when you keep secrets. You should have told me this is what the Yeerks would do. You know I have a brother who... You know about Tom. I had a right to know what could happen.
Maybe you would not have destroyed the Kandrona if you had known it could endanger Tom.
That's what you think? You know what, Ax? You're right to try and learn more about humans. Because you don't know the first thing about us. Not a thing.
No.
And
It's a really good scene.
It's a really good scene.
I want more infighting in the Animorphs. Like, interpersonal drama is great. Like,
oh my God, that's such a good scene.
It's good,
it's so good. This book was great.
But
this book's really good.
Yeah.
But Jake has Jake, how many secrets do we know about in the Animorphs right now? Like Marco's mom is Visser 1. That's a huge secret.
That's a pretty big secret.
Yeah, but Jake knows it, so he's not concerned with it.
It does kind of feel like, I don't know if it's actually in the scene, but like the way I feel with Jake as a character, he's mad that he's the leader and that he doesn't have information. Like, and he didn't get to make that decision.
That's a real read.
That's a valid read. I read it as a more like, I read it more straight off the page, just like no subtext. He's just really hurt that Ax isn't sharing things with him.
Chris also brought that out in your performance, Chris.
I had a lot of fun getting into that one.
You did great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was thinking about this while I was reading it a second time, where I was like, Jake, first of all, I think Jake would be great on Survivor. But what I mean by that is, like, I really think him choosing I feel like he may have chosen to say Rachel and Marco douded you.
Yeah, it felt
that was
a
deployment.
Yeah.
Like, that was a move.
Yeah.
That's the move I use when I'm arguing. It's to say,
Yeah. I stood up for you.
This. Yeah.
We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you.
Yeah.
Except for those two.
I wanted to say, Rachel's asking, what do we know about Ax? What has he ever told us about his planet? Marco's asking, does Ax ever talk about me when I'm not around? Does Ax smell like this to you?
Because to me, it's more of like an Old Spice thing, you know. It's like masculine but sensitive. It's like, yeah.
Thanks for listening to Anidorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon.